Welcome to ACP, the Amazon Connect podcast. This is the show that focuses on Amazon Connect and related technologies. I'm your host, Tom Morgan, and I'm joined as usual by my co-host, AWS Solution Architect and Contact Center Consultant, Alex Baker. We are also joined today by Eliza Taylor, Change Director, and Nick Seagrave, CTO, both at Cloud Interact. Find out more about Cloud Interact by visiting us at cloudinteract.io. It's time for another ACP, and it's a special one to kick off the new year because we have not one but two guests with us. But Alex is here as always. Hello, Alex. How are you?
Hi, Tom.
Welcome to 2025.
Welcome to 2025. Good to see you.
Likewise. And we're joined by Eliza Taylor, who is Change Director at Cloud Interact. Hello, Eliza, coming to us from London.
Hampshire this week, but yes.
Very nice. Very nice. In the Garden of England. And also joined by Nick Seagrave, who is the CTO at Cloud Interact, who's also from somewhere quite close to there, I think, in the middle of England. Hello, Nick. I'm not sure if that's true. I don't know. My geography of English is not as good as it should be.
Yes. And actually, St Albans is in the middle of England. But anyway, that's fine.
Never mind.
I'll go with that. That's fine.
Yeah. Luckily, I didn't take a career into geography. And so we brought you here today to talk through a couple of big kind of themes, really, around what we think 2025 will bring in terms of change and the kind of challenges for contact centers and that kind of experience. So I think in a few words, Eliza, if you could start just by kind of giving us your background, like what you're doing at Cloud Interact and your kind of expertise in this area.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And thanks both for having us on. This is fun. This is exciting. So yeah, I joined Cloud Interact almost a year ago now, so coming up to my anniversary. And I've worked in sort of change management, stakeholder engagement and communication in both public and private sectors for the last, I don't even want to put a number of years on it because I think that will age me. But yeah, so I've worked with a lot of tech companies, both in the UK and some in India as well. And most of the transformation that I've seen and I've worked on has been in the tech space, because that's really where we're seeing this sort of tidal wave of change, if you like, and how organizations can handle that and navigate it has, I think, been one of the most pressing issues for the last 10 plus years, really.
Well, it's really good to have you here. Nick, your turn.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. So previously to Cloud Interact, I've been through this journey once before, actually, with a company called Modality, as you'll know well, Tom, where we started off, and in those days it was the PBX. So the PBX was very much part of everyone's communication stack. So we went down that route of converting what we would call old school PBXs into what you see today in terms of Microsoft Teams, Zoom, that whole UC process of taking people from picking up a phone to then being able to wear a headset, being able to do a video, being able to chat, all that kind of thing. So that process I did for about 14 years. And actually, interestingly, from my perspective, Simon Laden, the other co-founder, he was on the other side of the fence for me. So the Modality often worked into the companies, large corporate companies that Simon was delivering his UC transformation in as well. So when that came to an end for me, it was sort of the UC is sort of coming to its not completion, but certainly it's not as probably interesting for me. Whereas for the customer experience, the front end side of things, in terms of how people interact back into businesses, is hugely somewhere near the start of that process. I think there's still a lot of picking up a phone and making a phone call, going through an IVR, all that kind of thing, getting to a human and then completing that task. And there's so much more better ways to do that. And there's so much more great technology and great sort of stuff that's coming, that it was hugely interesting to me and Simon to sort of start that journey and start that conversion, bringing that capability. So that's really why Cloud Interact was formed.
Interesting hearing Nick's view there, because I suppose I've been working in contact center technology for quite a while. You're probably right, Nick, in that there's been many years of that, the same sort of IVR, press 1 for sales, 2 for service technology. And actually, has it really changed a huge amount? It does seem that perhaps it's right for a bit more disruption.
Yeah. And I think the disruption that is coming is because of the advancements in capability in the cloud, in both AI and both natural language, the ability to have somebody speaking that actually isn't a human, but to a lot of people, actually, they probably really didn't even realize it. That kind of capability sort of wasn't there And in the unified comm space, that technology's sort of 10 years ago was fine. I think we're now in a very lucky space where those capabilities are there. So that advancement should be happening now. There is no reason for it not to happen now, actually, to tell you the truth. Whereas probably 10 years ago, if you said, go down the route of a virtual agent, it might be quite clunky and it might be quite unappealing to your customers.
I think the customer expectation is there, at least in patches as well. Like there's that expectation, but I think there's probably fear as well. Like, I don't know what you're seeing kind of, because you spend more time on the ground, probably talking more than any of us actually talking to real people, talking to customers, talking to agents about that process. So yeah, we think the customer expectation is there, but that might not be true. What's that like?
No, I think it is. I think that the modern customer is so used to convenience. They're so used to being able to get the information that they want when they want it, or do the activities, interact with their products and services. And I think that's part of the challenge as well, that you're not just competing against the last time that the customer contacted you or the last experience they had with you. You're competing with every experience and interaction they have had across all of the products and services that they consume. Like, you might be more strongly compared to certain things in the same industry if they've got multiple products or services kind of in a tower. But as we know, like, human beings don't tend to think about things in silos like that. They're just like, oh, great, I had a great interaction with this bank or this internet company or this product owner because I needed help. I really wish XYZ offered that app or that seamless experience or were as polite or as helpful as them.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. Social media's got an algorithm, as customer experience got an algorithm. Pretty much a lot of customer experience, you're virtually announcing yourself and they're getting to know you every time you come in. There's no sort of, welcome to Seagrave, I see you're this, and this. That algorithm hasn't really got into customer experience by the look of it. Some places it has, but certainly, like you say, when people expect the algorithm to know who they are, they expect when they call customer experience to know who they are and know what they're after and have some sort of insight into them, which is the battle, which is what, I think why we exist, is to try and make that move, make that happen, to get that personalized experience.
If I'm a really non-technical customer and I have a good customer experience somewhere, why shouldn't I expect that across the board? If one company can do it, what difference does it make to me what vertical they're in or what technology stack they're using?
Yeah. And in some ways we do actually see that slightly outside of our world, but still in the customer experience world. If you like, all returns are kind of like Amazon does returns now. Like, they're not, it used to be 28 days, a fight, a complaint, like multiple phone calls. Now it's just like, okay, fine. It's interesting.
Yeah. And you'll always go back to the thing that makes it fluid for you, isn't it? Like you say, if returns are easy, then you're probably a bit more flamboyant in your purchasing because you can return them. Returns for me or in the past have been, oh God, I can't even be bothered. So there's probably lots of things I've bought that I've never returned. But creating that customer service is potentially how your relationship with your customers will continue.
And are there challenges inside the company as well? I'm thinking kind of staffing, but also technology. Like, Eliza, probably you first for staffing, I guess. Is that a challenge?
Well, I suppose I was about to say, although from the customer's perspective, they have either a good experience or a bad experience, a seamless experience or a less seamless experience, there's actually a huge amount of technology, training, kind of process that goes into delivering that experience. And I think where things are less seamless, where they are harder, we absolutely see the impact of that on the agents and the agent teams as well. It's like when you share your screen and you have like a competition with your coworkers as who's got the most number of browser tabs open, right, in the course of their work. And some of the things that I've seen in the contact centers we've worked with, the agents just have all of these windows open. They're constantly bouncing between these different applications. And it's almost like the customer isn't having a seamless experience because the agent isn't having a seamless experience. And I think it's a lose-lose situation on both sides, to be honest.
Yeah, it's these like patchwork solutions, like one part of it's over here, one part of it's over here, and the credit card stuff happens over here. And like this poor agent is just trying to hold it all together and deliver what everyone is asking for in terms of improving customer experiences and all the rest of it.
And you've got to remember that their performance is probably evaluated on timings and metrics that's built into all of those activities. So if you know that it takes you 30, 40, 50 seconds longer to complete your after call work because you're going into a separate system, maybe you have to VPN into it, maybe the login isn't single sign-on, it's timed you out. That's directly affecting your performance and your scores and even your team's evaluation in the grander scheme of things. And that can mostly be tied back to that single piece of technology. And so that was one very specific example, but I do think we can see that, and we do see that across the board in a lot of areas where customer experience meets technology.
So what do we do about it? We've been on this journey for a couple of years. We've got some thoughts. I don't know. Should we talk about the tech first, maybe?
Can I just talk about one thing, Tom, that I think is really important in discussing is obviously the commercial side of things. So, it was just sort of a flippant point about the algorithm as such in terms of social media, but that's selling stuff. Often customer experience is just a defensive play. So it's very difficult to look at that from, let's spend millions on our defensive play and trying to sell that up the senior stack to the senior executives to say, we've got to improve because it's, and if you say, I want to invest in my defensive customer service experience, stuff like that, they're always going to ask, okay, what does that mean? Well, is that going to mean I'm going to maintain 30%, 40% customers? So there is a financial challenge to this in the customer experience space. So it's hugely important. And again, it comes down to, as we'll probably talk to, is to how efficiencies can be gained where you can get that customer experience improvement. You can make those advances, but you can also look at it at a very short return on investment phase. If you said, I'm just going to spend millions, you're not going to get it back, but you're going to get people slightly happier. People aren't going to spend the money. If you say, I'm going to make people a lot happier, you're going to get your money back in 6 months' time sort of thing. And then it's going to be 30% cheaper for you going forward. Plus you're going to get a better service offering and a better customer experience. Then people are going to buy into. So there is the commercial side of it that unfortunately, while everyone who's involved in customer experience would love to have an endless budget and love to be able to do everything great for their customers, but unfortunately they'll always get asked, well, what does it ultimately mean for our business? And if you can actually come back and say, well, actually, do you not worry about that so much, but we can deliver it and you can basically start costing less in X period of time. Those conversations we very much heard. So it is an important part of it. While there's the technical, there's the experience side of it. Every business has to be able to run. And so it very much needs to be taken as part of the conversation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we talk a lot about Amazon Connect here, and that's those kind of cloud-based solutions, and particularly in our world with Amazon Connect, that's made such a big difference in terms of scale and flexibility. And in some ways, it feels like that's kicked off this process that then obviously the AI layered on top and the other advances in technology have kind of made a big difference. I mean, I guess that's almost job one, isn't it? If you're looking at this, appraising the kind of the landscape and be like, right, we need to move forward. If you're not already in the cloud, do you need to move forward like this, do you think?
Yes. In a really short answer, yeah, I do. Some of the early migrations we've done from contact centers, they will not, well, unless those contact center companies reinvest, that they're not going to be able to get into the space and provide the capacity, the scalability, the new features, new functions that people are going to want. So you have to be you have to be in a cloud-based solution to be able to start and bringing that in. There'll be nothing more frustrating saying, great, I've got this great customer experience. Oh, yeah, we can't technically quite deliver that for you. And as you know, Tom, in terms of investigating, AI platforms and stuff, being at the front of it, you've got to be, it's still new, it's not a cheap thing. So the big clouds are out front for a reason because they have a lot of money. And if you want to integrate other services into them, they're the ones you've got to be part of in the cloud. I don't think anyone's going to come on with an on-prem AI stack or anything that's going to scale to anything that's going to be usable. So I think you're right, spot on, Tom. It's a starting point. You really is, but you need to know that starting point can go whichever way you need to go in terms of what you want to try and achieve.
I guess even if your main core contact center platform is still on-prem, people like Amazon are making it easier to use part of their cloud-based AI stack with it. But yeah, you're still incorporating cloud services into your on-prem solution.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can. I mean, you could have a cloud-based, self-service or, generative AI solution in the cloud and then route the call onto your on-prem contact center. So you can put that there. All that's going to do in terms of capability, well, one, integrations are going to be limited probably in terms of potential opportunities to share data or share some sort of nuance between the systems. And two, you're going to add costs as well. So yes, totally. It might be the first step to give you confidence that you can, you can take that step into the sort of more modern cloud-based stuff and still route back to your agents in a contact center that you trust yourselves. But I'd say it's a stepping stone. It wouldn't be some sort of state that you'd probably want to stay in for a long period of time, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, agreed.
And Eliza, when let's say you've kind of made the decision, you want to get off whatever your legacy thing, you want to take advantage, solve some of these problems, and Nick's sort of already spoken about the sort of the commercial side of things. You've made it make sense. What do you do next? Because I know the techie people amongst us will dive into like the tech, but actually it's about quite a lot more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there are some really compelling statistics around transformation and success rates. And I think a lot of that stems back to how human beings react to change. And I love the fact that sometimes when we put human beings in a company, in our brain, they sort of, a switch kind of flips and you think, oh, they're employees. So employees are innovative and they will embrace change and they want new, exciting things. And a lot of the time they don't. Can I talk a little bit about theory? Just a little bit. I promise it's slightly interesting, I promise. So negativity bias. So the way that the Homo sapiens, our brain has evolved, is designed to ensure our survival, which means that it focuses on immediate threats and it will keep pushing that threat to try and keep us alive. So, if you've gone to a river and you've been attacked by a wolf or a lion or whatever, your brain is going to continuously be saying, what was that noise? This bush isn't safe. Like it's going to be looking for that threat in your immediate environment all the time, rather than focusing on positive information. It's a negativity bias, not a positivity bias. So if we think about that in terms of an employee in a work environment where lions and wolves are slightly more scarce, perhaps, or just in a different format, when you say that you're going to change something that they understand, that maybe doesn't work perfectly, but they have grown very familiar with, comfortable with, they use it in the best way they can. You also have, it's sort of expertise anxiety.
They're the expert in it. They know how it works. Yeah.
And that's tied into a really social part of our brain about letting our team down and looking foolish. And also how competent we are at work can often be tied into a bit of our self-worth as well. So you immediately have quite a lot of resistance to change just built into our basic psychology and how we feel about ourselves in the workplace and the value that we bring. So organizations really need to think about this when they look to do either small changes or big transformation as well. And I do think it is interesting that when you put people in this category of employee, we somehow stop thinking of them maybe as we would other people. So if your leaders were going to change something for your customers, they were going to roll out something new or update something they currently use, or even remove an element of something because it's no longer very good or the direction you want to go in, there's going to be a lot of thought that goes into that, right? How you position it with them, how you explain it to them, how you sell the benefits or the reason behind it, and how they can get support so that they keep using your products and services. And I know that we've spoken about how customers are different. They're sort of bringing in that revenue, that profit, etc. But without your employees, you may not have a product or a service to sell. So if you applied even a fraction of the thinking that goes into making changes for that external audience to your internal audience, you'll be not just increasing the success or the likelihood of success, because I would say that it's not so much change projects or transformation projects failing, but it's more so that they are delayed, stalled, that large chunks of it are moved out of scope or whole departments are moved out of scope. And suddenly the benefit, that return on investment, the realization of benefits has already been undercut before you've even really got going, just because you needed to look at the human factor in it. And that's sort of my job, I guess.
No, it's totally makes sense. Like, and people will, you'll never realize the benefits you thought you were going to, because people are just fighting against the system rather than really embracing it and understanding it, or trying to take the old process and bang it into the new one. And
I promise you that any business case you look at will assume 100% adoption. That's what the benefits are based on, 100% adoption, right? Because that's what you do. You're like, we've got X number of people. If we reduce this amount of time or improve this part of the process, we will get X, Y, Z. That assumes that 100% of those people are using it at 100% efficiency. I don't think that's broadly realistic, and it's certainly not realistic without sufficient thinking, support, and kind of strategies to get them at least partly to that performance level.
it's something we've seen elsewhere. Internal IT often gets a bad rep because they know they've got a captive audience. It's not like building an iPhone app where like you're competing against all the other iPhone apps in your category. It's not that. Your employees use what you tell them to use, and so like that there has always been historically that sort of slight issue with quality. But it's not their fault. It's they're up against the timescales and the delivery and all that sort of stuff. But it's just like there's less competition there. So it makes such a big difference. I want to spend just a bit of time kind of talking about just some of the things we've been talking about internally as ways to solve these problems, and things how we can help organizations as well, kind of without it becoming a massive sales pitch. But I think it's interesting to talk through some of the stuff we've been talking through, especially around Apollo, which is started off as a project code name and has now become a product name because we thought it was such a good name to start with. We decided to keep it. So I feel like this is gonna be the thing that we sort of build all of our sort of how we talk about these challenges and how we address them kind of going forward. It will be kind of phrased in this kind of language, I think. But Nick, can you sort of go into some of the innovations that we are using in Apollo and some of the stuff behind it in terms of its sort of the things it does and the things that set it apart?
Yeah, I may come back to you, Tom, more
That's
deeper
fine.
technical sort of understanding of it all. But I think it's a really just what Eliza's talking about in terms of the people, very much the people side of it. But also, I think all people in Cloud Interact, we're very much analytical at the start in terms of things, but there's very much a human element we understand as well. But I'm not, and I think a lot of people in Cloud Interact aren't one of those people that would just have a whimsical sort of conversation with a business, then go, what you need is this, what you need is to implement this, and this, and it will give you exactly what you want. 30% of your, self-service and all your people on the back end as such, all your agents and humans and stuff will be very happy with all the information you get. I can't do that, and I don't think anyone can interact with it. So the sort of premise for Apollo is to get all the information. So while we can speak to a lot of people in a business, and some people we speak to have a lot of information, they'll say, "Yeah, I've got disposition codes, I've got information about everything, I know everything that's going on." And to other people, will go, "I haven't got a clue what's going on in my customer experience." So that's sort of different starting points for us. Then we want to delve a lot deeper. We want to actually go into those conversations that people are having with the customers. So the technology now, in terms of being able to bring in thousands and thousands of conversations, and it literally is thousands and thousands of conversations, and turning that into actual meaningful data. So as Eliza said, we can talk to people about their experience, and supervisors think they're fine, that they're great. But then actually, when you actually start delving into the information within the calls, you might find both from the customer side or from the agent side. So we're looking at ways, what we have done, and we're looking at ways, and the great technology that's coming in via AWS is obviously bringing that call, initially transcribing it, summarizing it, sentiment within it, other information that we deem really important and part of an algorithm that is working on and constantly changing week by week with the customers that we work with, where we come up and look at each of those interactions, look at actually what happened in those, but then ask that question 10,000 times. And that's where I'll probably refer to you, Tom, in terms of how you use, I believe we use Bedrock to go and basically, once we've worked out a trend as such, we'll go and see if that trend extends itself to 10,000 calls. Now, once we've taken that extremely large data set, and then we've potentially categorized calls, we've understood issues, we can really go back to the business and say, this is pretty much the impact we can make. It's not a whimsical, we think. It's like looking at the last 3 months worth of information that's come out of your customer experience platform. We can actually divide this up. Some of it can go to self-service. Some of it we can help people with Amazon Q. Some of it we can sort of embellish a bit more and make their life a lot easier from an agent perspective. So it's, bringing all the sort of new technologies into the space, but allowing us to create it and convert it back to what will be ultimately a human experience.
Yeah. It seems like it's become like the perfect amalgamation of all the things we've been quite good at. We've got very good technical capabilities. We've been staying on top of the AI stuff, so we know all of that. We've got a really solid reporting division, and actually all the stuff, Eliza, that you do as well, I think allows us to understand what to do with it all. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, so we're brilliant at all of that, but then there's always got to be a why back to the business that's got to make that happen. We can come in and say, we're great, we're going to do all this, and it's great, and it's going to be fabulous, both commercially and other reasons in a business, that they will have their reasons to do something, and that we need to bring that why in. And I was saying, trying to convince people to do it without this level of detail, I think it's very difficult. But if you put very much analytical data in front of people and say, this is the effect it will have, we know that in terms of we've got the AI to ask, numerous questions, and now each contact has about 15, 20 data points on it. We'll be able to make that a very compelling argument. And then hopefully that argument is that, do this and commercially you'll be better off in 9 months' time.
One of the nice things as well, I think, is because we sort of shape the direction that the product can take. You have a lot more sort of customization over what it is you're trying to find out from the source of data, so the call data. Maybe it's to do with we're interested in putting together a chat bot. So what are the interactions that we might want to automate? Or equally, maybe it's just something like, we don't fully understand what's going on in our queues. Can you do some analysis and give us some broad categories about the type of things that people are talking about?
Yeah, exactly. But it is exposing that, isn't it? How many, well, I don't even know what a number of terabytes of call recording data is out in the world that is basically untranscribed, and therefore they don't understand actually truly what's happening.
We just migrated 23 terabytes for one customer, didn't we? So
exactly. And we can go back and run this information, this process that Tom's pulled together on this, and come up with very exact information on and how things are performing. But you're right. The important part is that we're not coming in and saying, here's a great chatbot. We're not coming in and here's a great self-service. We're coming in and saying, here's a whole extended level of capabilities. Which one's going to work best for you? And we can say this will work best now based on how your customers are interacting. We can say this way of doing it, this way of self-service, this way of chat, or even video, if you really want to get it. We can say that from the data that we get out of Apollo, we can say this will translate into a successful both commercial and customer experience way forward.
And I think that's what Apollo why it resonates so much with me is that it feels like a very natural evolution of the story that data can tell. And it's not data in isolation. It's not just, we can pull metrics on average handling time or call wait time or adherence or after call work, etc., which, you can sort of look at sometimes too much in isolation. Our big modern global businesses need to be looking end to end at their customer proposition, at how they offer their products and services. And Apollo just surfaces this next level of story, of narrative that's completely data-driven, and that not just the leaders of the contact center should be interested in and should want and need, but that actually the overall business, because this is a key interaction point with all of your customers. If you're not picking up on that feedback, which you're not, because as we know that, a lot of the transcripts aren't looked at because of the volumes that we're talking about. So it's just this absolute goldmine of information that I don't think has been fully explored yet. And that's what Apollo is for me. It's about the story that data can tell for businesses and the benefits that telling that story can bring to the things they decide to change.
That's an excellent summary, I think, for probably the whole episode. So I'm not going to try and add to it. It's that strategic thinking about change all over and end to end, and the importance of doing that, not just, technologically replacing your contact center. We could talk all day about this, I'm sure. In fact, we do. We have calls where we do talk about this for hours on end. But for this episode, it's time to bring it to an end. Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you, Eliza. And thank you, Nick. And thank you all for listening. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast player. That way you won't miss the next episode. Whilst you're there, we'd love it if you would rate and review us. And as a new podcast, if you have colleagues that you think would benefit from this content, please let them know. To find out more about how Cloud Interact can help you on your contact center journey, visit cloudinteract.io. We're wrapping this call up now, and we'll connect with you next time.